Right, we need some questions from the audience. Let me know if you have a question. Put your hand up and I'll come around to you in a minute. We can also take questions if you're watching live, anywhere you are. Send in your questions via Twitter, and you can ask any of these fine-looking people here. I want to start with you, Dr. Mullin, because you are the food MD talking about, you've got this new book, The Gut Balance Revolution, which is great. You guys should check it out. It's right here, Gut Balance Revolution. I got a pre-copy. Thanks, Lauren.
So much for commercials.
Yeah. If you ask a good question, I might just give you this as well. But I want to ask you first, how is an organization like Johns Hopkins, which is so esteemed, dealing with this massive transformation of understanding about microbes?
Well, it's very interesting that we actually have a consortium of 50 investigators that have come together under Dean Rothman. So we have a microbiomes interest group with different investigators, different clinical researchers, all having a strong interest in the microbiome. So they're at the cutting edge, actually, of all this, I'm proud to say.
Exciting. How do you, in your practice there, maybe practicing slightly different from other gastroenterologists? I mean, I've sort of made fun in the past on this show that gastroenterologists sort of missed that there was 100 trillion microbes in their organ of choice. So what's happening in gastroenterology?
Well, in our practice, we do recognize the fact that the GI tract intimately has a systemic association with illness, and many of us take a functional medicine approach to that. At Hopkins, maybe not as many as others, but I think there's a transformation that's happening, across our society, where we do have this recognition about the gut being really the mother of the body, and that we need to nurture it and take care of it very well.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's a good thing. Yeah, do you want to, let's Dr. Cortez, you go.
So treating something like ulcerative colitis, you would treat then? How?
Excuse me?
Ulcerative
Rephrase that,
colitis,
please.
you
Yes.
would still, even if the hematocrit's down at 13, you still hospitalize and you still consider sectioning? Or would you be treating as a microbiome?
Well, we have to look at all illness as a spectrum and stage of illness. And someone who's got the active bleeding and severe ulcerative colitis needs certainly monitoring and management that does require anti-inflammatory medications acutely. So that would be, for someone who has an emergency like that, that's how you would manage that acutely. But long term, obviously, we're talking about more preventive medicine and more long-term approaches to people. That would certainly include the microbiome. There's ample data showing how probiotics do help maintain ulcerative colitis in remission, even does treat acute ulcerative colitis that's moderately active, not severely active.
Mm-hmm. You can reverse it.
Thank you.
A little, you can reverse it under your, you had the mic, so everyone heard that at home. But yeah, we'll get to that. Dana, I want to ask you a question here, because you are the food coach. You are working with people to actually coach people. A lot of people are starting to understand about the microbiome because it's everywhere. How do you, how do you eat for an optimal microbiome?
So it's really interesting. What I'm seeing is that all of a sudden we've gone from worrying about what we're supposed to eat to what our microbiome is supposed to eat. And just as there isn't one particular diet for all of us, there's going to be a various array of diets for your microbiome as well, just depending on what you're actually working on. And so if you've decided through your functional medicine skills that somebody needs to be on a ketogenic diet, then you're going to guide them through that for a short period of time. Or you might decide that the appropriate diet is much more of a plant-based diet, and then you guide them on that. And here's what, being a nutritionist, I have the luxury of having time with my clients to really talk them through things. So it's not, as James just alluded to before when he was talking about the app, the Buddy site. Like if you say the paleo diet, like what do people think?
Tons of meat.
Yeah, tons of meat, and not necessarily grass-fed meat. Somehow it just sort of gets skipped, or it's like lots of paleo treats made with almond butter, and they come in with a really depleted diet where it's like chicken breast for breakfast, and maybe a burger without the bun at lunchtime, and then some other type of fish in the evening with maybe some steamed broccoli, and they're wondering why things just aren't functioning for them. And so it's being really precise about what you want them to eat. And I do work with a strong woman demographic, and so they appeal to things that are pretty. And so make the food sound pretty, make it really visual for them. So I'll just run through a day, like we'll just, a microbiome enhanced day. So you might start the day with a shot of coconut kefir. And in that one shot of coconut kefir, like a little capsule, you have 15 billion CFUs, 15 billion. Then you might have a smoothie made with pea protein. So pea protein has been shown to increase the bifidobacteria and the lactobacillus as well. And you might make that with almond milk, and then I love the combination of cherries and beets. You have this sort of nice sort of earthy mixture with the sweetness of that. So you've got this robust and beautiful red-colored smoothie. And then you might go into lunch, and lunch would be a salad with kale for Dr. Drew Ramsey, and then arugula with avocado and pumpkin seeds and snow pea sprouts, and maybe your grass-fed beef. And if anybody here, I think that everybody's based, quite a few, you're based in Manhattan, there's a place that I just discovered that delivers to all of Midtown called the Butcher's Block. And the salad that I just described, that's it. That was there. I was like, oh my goodness, wow. And there were sprouts and other things in it. And then in the afternoon, you might be saying, let's have some berries and a kombucha if you want something a little bit sweet and you're okay with that. And then for dinner, it could be halibut over some eggplant, since eggplant is a prebiotic. And then maybe some asparagus with some chili flakes and some lemon zest. So you make it sound really good for them. And then I go through a couple of days, and then I have them repeat a day. They can't use any of the examples that I've used. So it has to be practical for them. Yeah.
Hang on, you got to just use the mic so people can hear.
Sorry. Your food doesn't have a lot of chewability. You're not exercising your muscles. You're not exercising the TMJ. You're not exercising the cervical. The only thing you got to was the asparagus and halibut that had any bite. Everything else is too smooth. So I think some of you are even talking about chewing your liquids.
I think kale is quite chewy.
Yeah, but that's about it. The rest of it wasn't.
Yes. You could put in chia seed or something like that if you want that. So you'll decide what's appropriate for your particular client or patient.
Good stuff. Jerry, tell us a little bit. I know I read your book, and I've seen some of the that's there. I know you're mainly a Mediterranean man. What are some of your
Mediterranean
favorite things?
man.
Yeah.
That sounds brandable.
What are some of the sort of microbiome feeding foods that are integrative gastroenterologist approved?
Well, we all love yogurt and kefir, but the problem is that the yogurts that you kind of buy that are out there are certainly ultra pasteurized, and they're really microbial deficient by and large. So sometimes it's better to really make your own. It's more robust when you make your own, and certainly with the kefir, I was very privileged to have dinner last night with my friend Lauren Marks here, and here he was very proud to show me how he was making his own kefir. He goes, you got to try this. You got to try it. It's really microbial rich, better than the kefirs I had that are certainly commercially available. So I have to tip my hat off to the docs who do their own thing, like Lauren. But I think those are the two. There's certainly a sauerkraut, the pickles, pickled vegetables that you showed on the screen before, Maya. I mean, there's so many different options that we have to nurture our microbiome. So those are amongst my favorites.
Awesome. I'm just going to go. We got a couple of questions from Twitter here. This is from Patty Carter. She says, do anti-TNF meds for autoimmune change the microbiome to be healthier, or not?
Well, I don't think there's studies on that, but I can't imagine how they'd be a help since they're, if you want to use the word poisoning, since they're really disarming our immune system to a large extent. They're really dampening the response to the microbes and certainly not rebuilding certainly the gut immunity, certainly the gut itself or the microbes they're in. So, I mean, they're kind of preventing more casualties of war, but they're not really rebuilding the infrastructure. So they're really, they're used, unfortunately, what they call top-down therapies, which is a way that medicine it's very good marketing, that we kind of kill everybody or overload everybody with these medications that are overkill, literally, to shut down a response no matter what the spectrum is, and not reserve them for emergencies or reserve them for the worst case scenarios. They're given to practically everybody, and the marketing spin is called top-down therapy. And of course it's going to work for the vast majority of people because you're overwhelming the immune system and you're shutting it down. But in the meantime, the microbes themselves, they're really not correcting the underlying problem or the root cause.
Interesting. I spoke to a doctor this weekend in Toronto, and he said something genius. He said, when people come in with their meds, ask them, if someone was well and took all the things that you're taking, what would happen to their health? That's a really good barometer. It's a good question to ask people as they go along. You got a question?
I have a question for Dr. Shetreat-Klein. As a pediatric neurologist, I'm curious what your response or your reaction is to the fact that at the Republican debate, Dr. Carson, also a pediatric neurologist, said in front of 23 million people that we are vaccinating too much too soon, and that as a result, some children are getting hurt. What's your response to that?
Well, he's a neurosurgeon, actually, but
Right.
but I think it was really fascinating moment because I'm not sure how much was politically driven and how much was really based in the actual scientific literature. But I think what hopefully I showed was that this is a really nuanced conversation. And so every time somebody brings up any kind, did you see all the articles the next day?
Yes, I did.
And how, Republicans are anti-science, et cetera, et cetera. And it really everywhere, the Atlantic, New York Times, everywhere. And I kind of realized anti-science is actually, I think, an industry term, which is a PR term. And I think it is really about shutting down conversation. What I'm really in favor of is acknowledging that there's nuance and walking away, stepping away from dogma. Because science is not something you can be anti or for. It's about conversation, and it's about looking at literature, looking at change, looking at what's happening in front of your face. So what I'm in favor of is having that conversation. So personally, I was delighted that it came up in the debate, but it's always so interesting to watch what the spin is. But I'm hoping to continue that conversation.
Great. Thank you.
We've had a lot of questions on Twitter about what probiotics you guys use. So maybe I'm just going to go through and just, clinically, soil-based or whatever, quick fire round some of your favorite probiotics for treating a wide range of issues. Pretty broad question. Hope you can be pretty tight with the answers. Let me start with you, Maya, and we'll go down this way.
So I really think, if we're talking about what's in things like yogurt and kefir, and I do make my own yogurt, so easy, so easy. Everyone should try it. So I think things like that are great, and I actually think soil is great. I think soil-based organisms are great. I think nature does a way better job than we do ever, really, with things that are complex. And so I really try to, I have a garden, and I try to grow food, and I keep chickens, and I try to interact with the world around me, and I actually think that is the best probiotic, better than any product.
Good answer. We like that. Okay, Dana, what do you think?
So there's a number of them out there, but I like Clear Labs, so I tend to use their Theobiotic Complete, which is a 12-strain probiotic, and sometimes I use a Dr. O'Hara's, which is a fermented food.
Cool. Reid?
Well, since patients are always saying we have no time for anything, we always try to promote good food, sauerkraut and other things they should be eating. But we would give them a probiotic by mouth that they could take, but also we would give them a probiotic that they could keep in their mouth. So after they do their oral home care, they can reseed the mouth with healthy bacteria.
Dr. Mullin, I know there's a lot of interest in your thoughts on this.
I agree with all my panelists, but there's one point I want to make about the Remicade, is that evidence versus harm. and I'm writing a chapter for Dr. Rakel's book on integrative medicine on IBD. And we're looking at each therapy with the risk versus risk is a factor. So the Remicade is clearly a risk. So we have to look at it, the whole totality and the whole picture, but we always have to look at risk.
Absolutely. All right, we got time for one or two more questions here. Rika?
Hi, Reid. Reid, I have a question for you. Great to see you on the panel. In a case for thrush in the mouth, what do you recommend regarding the oral osmolarity, breaking up the caps? What is it you would recommend, especially for chronic Lyme patients?
Well, we would recommend something like an essential oil that could be very strong. Even they can try to remove it with tongue scraping, but chances are that won't work, and that would be the telltale that it's a problem. But if a patient has thrush on their tongue, then we figure they have some kind of IBS or some other issue going on, so we want them to see their integrative doctor to deal with that end of the problem. Also, if they have thrush in the mouth, they could be mercury toxic, because mercury will, the fungus grows as a result of the mercury because the fungus eats the mercury. So it's another symbiotic relationship that the body has.
Hi, this question is for Dr. Winick. I actually am a huge proponent of microbiotics, so I thought this would be a question for the whole panel, but my question is, what do you mean note floss? I feel like I'm 12 years old. I've been telling people to floss forever.
Well, so here's the deal. Everyone knows they should floss, but only 35% really floss, and I think most of them are hygienists. The reality is if you have an infection in your gums, number one, the infection is deep down in the pocket, where your floss can only go 1 or 2 millimeters to the top of the pocket. Second thing is the bacteria that causes infection is anaerobic. So you don't find anaerobic bacteria up here, you found it down here. So again, it's great if you have food court. If you want to floss, don't stop, okay? However, if you find out that you have an infection in your mouth, then there's more effective ways to deal with the infection. One way would be using a water pick or a hydrofloss, some kind of water irrigator. Or another way would be doing oil pulling. Oil pulling is very, very effective. But, and then you have certain clays and other herbal medicaments you can use that are antimicrobial. What we've learned, and we've studied this in the office, is that no matter what you do at home, whether it's oil pulling or a good herbal mouth rinse, you still need to see we call them periotherapists, to break up the biofilm. It's because nothing can pierce through that sludge, and it needs to be broken up properly. And then you go on the home care, and then you're golden.
Love that. Hey, I'm sorry to say that we are running out of time because we have to do it. And I know that Dr. Mullin has to take a train back to Baltimore. So I know there's a lot of questions. Maybe stay for some bant afterwards. But I'd love everyone to give a big round of applause to all of our panelists.
Thanks so much for watching. And for more great clips like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I've created a special free video just for you. It's called the 5 Steps to Becoming a Leader in Your Wellness Community, and it'll give you some of the starting points on how to position yourself as the leader in your zip code of your health community. All you have to do is click on the link below.